welcome to the Next Best Picture podcast, where I am being joined right now by the voice of Daffy Duck, Porky Pig in The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie, Eric Bauza, everyone. Eric, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today.
Insert audience applause here. Oh, Daffy, we don't need applause. He was just just kidding.
Have you ever been challenged to do an interview without doing one of the voices?
Can you imagine? I would probably split in half. I wouldn't know what to do with myself. I'm always this is how I get through a conversation is with the voices.
It's a hell of a party trick. I'll say that much.
I always say it gets me through U.S. Customs at the airport real fast. I could be smuggling back poutine from Canada, French fries, gravy, and cheese, and they wouldn't say anything because I'd go,
oh, don't worry, Doc. It's a very safe traditional Canadian food.
So, going back to the beginning here, I want to know, how do you fall into this or obtain this? Because it's one thing to grow up watching these characters, doing the voices yourself. We've all done it. We've all mimicked these iconic characters at some point or another. But then you make a career out of it. How does that happen?
I still don't know. I still pinch myself and see if I wake up from this great dream that I'm having. And I have always have Mel Blanc to first thank for creating such memorable characters that that have stood the test of 90 years later, and 90 more to come, I believe. I don't think I'll be the last person to voice these characters, and I want
there to be an army of Bugs Bunnies, Doc. Not just me. I think there's enough room in Hollywood for more rabbits, and more ducks, and more pigs.
Who doesn't like more bacon in their breakfast? Who doesn't like Kevin Bacon, for that matter?
Fair point.
Even be in this movie? I don't know, but yeah, it's Saturday mornings with a big bowl of cereal, hanging out with my brother. Is where it all began, really. Not just as a voiceover artist, but as a cartoonist. I became an animator cartoonist before I began doing these voices. And it was in high school is when I think I was given the ability to use my voices in exchange for getting my work done on the morning announcements over the PA system. So, there would be like, hey, Beavis, there's a basketball game after school. Yeah, you said ball. That boy ain't right. And of course, I would do Looney Tunes voices and, woo, Marge, they have hot dogs in the cafeteria.
Oh, Homer, that's not good for your cholesterol.
So, yeah, it kind of just came to second nature. But if I got a reaction like what you just did, then I would be like, okay, then I'm doing something right.
I'm just imagining now, like, characters from Looney Tunes, Simpsons, Bob's Burgers, like put them all in a room together and just.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because now having worked and working on shows like Bob's Burgers, I am getting to know and get acquainted with some of their animation directors. And if you look at my Instagram profile right now, this came about. I had sent a message to one of the directors.
What's up, Big Bob?
I don't get it. Are you some kind of talking rabbit or something?
That's right, Doc. I'm a rabbit.
I bet you taste good between two pieces of bread or in a stew.
You don't want to eat me, Big Bob. Okay, me.
I'm funny.
So yeah, that was done by one of the animation directors, Simon Chong. And I mean, that was just from a fun message that I had sent him of Bugs Bunny talking to Big Bob. And that happens, it's the weirdest. These phones can be dangerous. It's the weirdest thing that you can do. It's such a great playground to be a part of, with so many people that want to participate and have different toys to play with.
Absolutely. And in here with The Day the Earth Blew Up, this is the first fully animated feature film that is entirely original material in the Looney Tunes franchise to get this like big theatrical worldwide release. And so I'm curious for you, just from a stamina standpoint, like what's the difference between working on a feature film like this versus smaller bits, clips, where I mean, I don't know, like, just from the standpoint of stamina for you, like, is there any difference?
Oh yeah, no, I'm gonna say working with 42 West is the big difference. They're the ones that have been putting me in the spotlight for this, and I've worked on so many other things and no one cares until 42 West has opened these doors for me. So shout out to the PR folks at 42 West. They
Big
are
shout out to
fantastic.
to 42 West. They're great.
Yeah, now I know who the best in the biz is, and that is not a paid advertisement. There is no one in the room here from 42 West telling me or showing me cue cards to say that 42 West is the best in the best in the West. I'd say, yeah, but no, they've been and the East because they're on the East Coast, but yeah, a lot of attention is being thrown to this one, especially because, like you said, it's the first standalone feature film, and I think it's animation history. I think people should be paying attention and knowing that this exists, and I hope that they do discover it and that they if you're a parent or just a big fan of cartoons and you tell your friends about it or you bring your kids and they're probably going to want to see this one again. It's just that entertaining.
Yeah, and moving too. I was not expecting it to be as emotional as it was.
Right. I mean, and that's like, that's saying something. We've all seen Porky and Daffy cartoons that are 7 minutes long, and we get what we need from them. We get a good laugh. I always like to say, "Oh, poor Porky." I always think like, how is Daffy gonna, ruin and trample all over Porky's day this time? But in this movie, we get a sense and a very quick glimpse into them as babies, almost as brothers, abandoned, and they get adopted by Farmer Jim, who takes them in, and it just goes off from there. Even with the first quick few moments of that part of the movie, you get that instant backstory that they could have been brothers or they are in this movie. And then when it gets right to the end, when the stakes are the highest, it pays off and it does tug at your heartstrings. It's like that scene in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles in the hotel room where John Candy's like, you don't like me? Well, I like me. My friends like me. Yeah, that's we'll put Porky and Daffy in that scene.
Yeah, yeah. So for you, in hopping into the recording booth, you can effortlessly, I imagine, trade off lines between the two characters yourself and play entire scenes out, where you don't have to do Daffy's part first and then jump over to Porky. You could just do it, right? Like back and forth like that.
Oh, absolutely.
Sometimes I did. There are certain scenes where it is short enough that I'm like, I wonder how it would play if I just kind of just went back and forth. Can I react to myself that fast? And of course, having Pete Braungart there, the director of the film, and Alex Kerwan, the executive and also creative himself, only helped the situation, only plus the situation, and also gave me allowance to do some improv and maybe ad lib some lines, and or rearrange words to make it more comfortable, or this is how Daffy would really say it. So yeah, but we ended up doing like the pass where in the long runs we would concentrate on just Porky and hammering out his side of the story first, and then go to the other side of the fence and really sculpt Daffy's part of the conversation. And, according to Pete, about 9 times out of 10, when they would marry the dialogue together and sometimes even overlap it, it would work. Always, it would work. So it's just a combination of having the right material and working with the right people to get this result that we have now as a final picture on the big screen.
Yeah. So you talk about having Pete there in the recording booth with you, and obviously you have all these characters that you're voicing, not just Daffy, Porky, but also you're the voice of so many other Looney Tunes characters as well. I'm curious though, for you, like, is there ever a day where you're fortunate enough to have another actor in the recording booth with you, or yeah?
Oh yeah. Well, Candy Milo, for instance, when we were doing Looney Tunes cartoons, she was Granny. I was Tweety, and Jeff Bergman was Sylvester. So, there are instances like that where, I was Bugs Bunny, Jeff Bergman was Elmer. And it's funny, and there's instances in movies like Space Jam: A New Legacy where Jeff
Mhm.
Bergman is Bugs Bunny and I'm Elmer.
Yeah.
So depending on who's telling the story, really does dictate, the round robin that we have of other voiceover performers that are lucky enough to breathe life into these characters.
Speaking of breathing life into the characters too, this movie's gotten such great critical reception. It's like some of the strongest I think the franchise has maybe even ever received. So when you talk about like the long life of these characters and how you can have ebbs and flows, throughout time, maybe some projects land, some projects don't, but like, what does it mean for you to be part of one that is so wholly beloved as this one is?
Whew, it is a big relief and a big weight off of my shoulders that it worked and that people really like it, and that's all you could really hope for. Really is to live up to and pay homage to how great the cartoons that were made in the 40s were. Because I'll tell you, I think I watch those cartoons all the time.
And just to keep the knives sharp, Doc, you gotta exercise.
And I do that by watching a few shorts every week. And yeah, it is it's crazy to think of what they were doing in the 40s. Like what were they looking at? Like how are they, because we look at their cartoon short films as inspiration. What were they looking at? And
Mhm.
I know I got a word in with Chuck Jones's daughter, Linda, and she said, "My dad, Chuck, he was looking at fine art like Picasso. He wa-
Oh,
he was studying Picasso's work, and it's funny how that spawned Looney Tunes. You know what I mean, and other things. So yeah, it's interesting, and that's just evolution and art itself. It's always changing, and our only hope now is that people will look back at this one in 90 years and say, "Oh yeah, I remember that one."
yep. Well, it's funny you say that, like in terms of like changing art and stuff. Like, while we're not getting like an R-rated Looney Tunes movie like necessarily anytime soon, there are a couple aspects of this movie where I feel like it does also kind of like push the rating a little bit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You're right. It's
Mhm.
it's not a rated G movie. It's a PG movie.
Exactly.
And that has always been Looney Tunes. It's first of all, the creation of these shorts in the golden era, there was no broadcast standards and practices. There
Mhm.
were no notes from the network. It was like a bunch of overgrown kids working at Termite Terrace, just wanting to make people laugh any which way they could, any which way they thought was okay. And there was a flow and order of production, but not like there is today, not like how we get things made and approved today. So yeah, the movie kind of follows suit and doesn't hold back and doesn't cater to one person or one group, or we still have to get things approved, obviously, but I think this it kind of feels like like almost like a guerrilla film, an independent film at the very least. It's not your, we don't have a big musical number. We don't have "Let It Go, Let It Go." We don't have Daffy singing in this one. Maybe
Yeah,
the next one. Who knows?
maybe.
Do you
Gosh.
wanna build a snowman?
No,
That'd
spare
be great.
spare us all, please,
Daffy
Daffy.
Duck ruins the hits. Yeah.
So what is your favorite line of dialogue or exchange in The Day the Earth Blew Up? And would you do the honor of voicing it for us, if so?
What is I'm doing Porky right now. I'm stuttering as Porky. There's a scene where the alien gum monster breaks through the glass, and apparently it was an ad lib. Pete just told me that was something that I had come up with, which is the gum wad trying to enter Daffy's, mouth, and he's forcing his way in. He's like, "I barely even know you." I think that the rest of it was, "At least buy me dinner at a movie first," But that was all they used. I remember now. I do remember. I think I recorded that in Toronto while I was visiting my folks, like one spring. I mean, yeah, we started making this in 2019, And Porky and Daffy, it's like,
We have to remove all cracks on the sidewalk. Daffy, I said no cracks.
you know, it's all my favorite jokes are just low-hanging fruit butt jokes. So
Yeah. What I find also like pretty remarkable, and I know I expressed this to you the last time I saw you, was how it was kind of unfathomable to me that this movie struggled to get released. And it's kind of a miracle in a small way that this film is getting released. And I know also like you voiced characters for Coyote versus Acme, and unfortunately that film's fate ended up the way it ended up. Very sad for everybody involved there. But when you look at the state of animation and these characters today, like why do you think this was such a struggle? I mean, it's great that it's being released in the way that it is, but at the same time, like these are iconic parts of American culture, and I feel like there's still a respect and admiration for these characters. And so, like, what is it that the big suits are just not seeing here?
Well, there's respect between you and me and the Looney Tunes, and we get it.
and it's not to say that they don't either. I feel like that's just the state of the industry, period. I mean, there have been acceptance speeches that we've seen in the last few weeks that address this issue of, saving smaller films and saving films in general, like making
Yeah.
stuff. We went from we couldn't get enough content to now where is the content, or like how are you choosing to execute your budget over 4 quarters? Like what's going to make the money for you? How many views is this going to get? Whereas just make a good story and seats will be filled. If you just trust the people that are making these pictures, then I don't think there will be a problem. When you second guess or if something doesn't pull in the numbers that you want it to in the first day and then pull the plug or sweep it under the rug, then no one is going to no one is always going to keep forgetting that these characters exist. Every time you bring them back, it's going to be like a reboot or a reimagining versus, oh yeah, another Daffy Duck movie or another Looney Tunes movie. I just think allowing it to breathe and have a chance is one thing. Of course,
I'm just a simple duck.
I'm not a network executive. I'm not a studio executive for that matter. So the reasons behind why they picked that film could have been so arbitrary. Could have been just the number, not even knowing the name of the title that fit in the equation, that fit in the H&R Block tax form,
Right.
It's simple as that.
Yeah.
But that being said, we do have one that got through, and that's this movie, and it is a good movie, and I appreciate you saying that.
Thank goodness I don't have to say it anymore.
But it is a fun movie, and I think what I hope is that it does so well that they may not have a choice but to release, if not Coyote versus Acme, then other new Looney Tunes projects. We got to keep these characters going because, after all, we wouldn't be anywhere close to where we are now without these original cartoons.
And I was going to make a joke saying we also got to keep you employed, but you also do voice other characters and also have other projects outside of just Looney Tunes. I mean,
I gotta tell you, I am one of the luckiest few that gets to do this on a regular basis. And
mhm.
again, with this movie being such a landmark and history-making film, celebrating, we're at 90 years now with these characters. They're still one of my favorites, and anytime I get to do something with them, there was a period of time where I was working on Looney Tunes cartoons, this movie, and the preschool show at the same time. And I'm tired. Sometimes it's nice to have a break, but not too long.
Yeah.
As a voiceover artist, I'm unemployed the moment my Air Jordan sneaker hits the sidewalk when I leave the booth and when I leave the studio. We're
Not all of us have the Simpsons contracts where we get to assign a dotted line and we're guaranteed a paycheck.
No, we're unemployed. We're hunters of most 9 to 5 voiceover artists. We have to go back out there, and or else my kid's gonna be hungry and have crooked teeth. No braces for him.
Unless I can quack like a duck, quack quack, and sell insurance like the Geico lizard. Yeah.
Gosh. Oh man. Simpler times, but also pretty dull times, I would say.
Again, it's forcing us. The current state of this industry is forcing us to be creative and get it out there and on the screen in other ways.
Right.
And thank goodness for GFM animation, as well as all the Ketchup Entertainment and any other distributor out there that is working hard to get something that would normally get through the hoops of fire with ease. But nowadays it is the going rate. We have to bear through it, but at least we get to celebrate moments like this.
Absolutely. So from the Adventures of Puss in Boots to Muppet Babies to Invader Zim, I mean, like the list goes on and on and on here. You've had like your hands or your voice rather involved with so many different projects. Is there an animated project or a family project or anything out there really that you want to lend your voice to but haven't had the opportunity yet to do so?
It's funny. Just the other day, I was in the booth voicing Bugs Bunny for a little project that it will be shown sometime this summer. And it's like a very, very short piece. But in that project, there are other characters of Warner Brothers and DC. And I actually got to say the words, "I'm Batman," in one of those projects.
Oh,
But I
boy.
can't say when it's happening or actually who else that I even did in that short piece. But boy, was I happy.
You did your best Mark Hamill impression as the Joker, didn't you?
Oh boy, I wish I could say that, but we'll leave that to the professionals.
That's actually pretty damn good. That's pretty spot on.
Well, he's
Uh,
a friend of mine.
and then finally, Eric, as we wrap up here, when you look back on, the day the Earth blew up, we've already talked about like why this is special. We've already talked about like how its release is special. For someone who steps in the booth to record for these characters time and time again, how do you know in the process of making something that the project is special?
I mean, again, anytime it says any combination of the word Looney and Tunes, there is a no-brainer that this is going to be great. Man, yeah. I mean, this movie, I recently got to do their voices for a pinball machine, which is insane.
Yeah.
It's the first pinball machine of the Looney Tunes in over 20 years, maybe even longer, 30. I mean, I don't do interactive media games that much, but when I do, it's a pinball machine. How old school is that? How appropriate is that for Looney Tunes? But yeah, and then you have to consider working with someone like Pete Browngardt and our modern day Leon Schlesinger, who is Sam Register, who cares more about these characters more than any other executive I've ever met, and Alex Kerwan. Josh Mosier, who is the composer of all the music for this movie, which is incredible. That close within the bullseye of Carl Stalling and Raymond Scott. Like we're basically just replicating what we grew up watching and trying to tip our hats and say thanks to the people that allow us to keep the lights on in our house.
Yeah. So it's an honor and it's a privilege, no matter what the setting is, but it sounds like it's the people along the way that make it a special experience.
It takes an army.
I just do the easy stuff.
There's an army of artists that have broken their wrists on this project, and we have to go see this movie to it would be a disservice not to.
And they should. As I mentioned earlier, it's funny, it's moving. It also features two characters that are worthy of having their own feature-length film together on screen like this. So, Eric, I want to thank you for your time here, and thank you for bringing life to these characters during this time, and hopefully for many, many more.
Well, thanks. Thank you. And thank you to Next Best Picture. And on that note, I'll say
That's all, folks.
take care.